In today's tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you how to draft a trouser pattern pieces. And we'll be using inches today. I've already ruled an inch away from the side of this pattern paper. Number one, the waist point. For me to get the waist point, I'm going to measure 1.5 inches from the beginning of this pattern paper. It will now be my waist point. Number two, the hip vertical point. My hip vertical point is 8 inches. From this point down, I'm going to mark 8 inches. Number three, the crotch vertical point. My crotch vertical point is 10 inches. From this point down, I'm going to measure 10 inches. Number four, the knee vertical point. My knee vertical point is 21. From this waist down, I'm going to measure 21. But before I mark 21, I have to push this 21 forward with 2 inches. Why? To free the knee area a bit. I'll mark 19 instead of 21. Number five, the ankle vertical point. My ankle vertical point is 38 inches. From this point down, I'll mark 38. And number six, which is the full length of the trouser. The ankle point is not the full length of your trouser. About 2 inches away from your ankle point is your full length of your trouser, because when you stop your measurement at the ankle point, your trouser is going to be hanging. It's not going to fall well. So you have to extend it with 2 inches. Remember, this is semi-loose trouser. For you to take the full measurement of your trouser, you have to put your foot on the floor. Then measure from your waist all the way down. Let your tip touch the floor. When you sew your trouser and put on your shoes, your trouser will have a good length. It will not jump up. When you stop at the ankle length and put on your shoes, it will not fall well. It will definitely hang. So the full length of my trouser is 40 inches. Now I'm going to rule across the lines, label them so we know which is which as we go further. The waistline, hip line, cross line, knee line, ankle line, and the hem line. Now the vertical lines are in place. We are going to now draft our horizontal lines. I'm not going to start with the waist like I normally do. I'll be starting with the hip measurement. Why? Because the hip circumference is the highest. So the hip measurement is going to play a key role at this cross line and also a key role at the waistline. So we are starting with the hip measurement. You will see it as we go along. Number seven, which is the hip measurement. My hip circumference is 40 inches. When I divide 40 inches by 4, I will have 10 inches. And that 10 inches, I'm going to add half an inch to it for ease allowance, because we are drafting semi-loose trouser. So along this hip line here, I'm going to mark 10.5 inches. This is 10.5 inches here. I'll mark the same 10.5 inches along this cross line as well. I'll go to the waistline and mark the same. Now I'm going to connect these 3 points with a vertical line. We're going to come back to the waist later. Let's move on. Number 8, the crotch measurement. To complete the crotch measurement, we are going to divide this hip measurement by 5. When I divide this hip measurement by 5, I'll use 1 part to complete this crotch line. Now my hip measurement is 10.5 inches. And I'm going to divide that 10.5 inches by 5. When I divide it by 5, I will have 2.1 inches. I'm going to add that 2.1 inches to this line, starting from here. I'll mark here. With this, the crotch measurement is completed. So I'm going to erase this part away for it to be clear. We don't need this part anymore. We don't need this anymore. That's why it's very good to work with pencil so that you can erase the part that are not needed out for your drafting to be very clear. I'm going to connect this point with a French curve to this particular line here. If you don't have a French curve, please carefully maneuver it with your hand. It has to be a very shallow curve. For us to get the proper measurement for the knee, the ankle line and the hem line, I have to find the midpoint of this cross line from here to here. So the midpoint of this cross line is 6.6 here. Then now I'm going to measure that 6.6 from the waistline down to the hem line. Now I'm going to connect all these points with a vertical line. This line now will now serve as our center line. With this straight line, we'll be able to shape our trouser the proper way. This drafting is the front part of one leg. Back is not included. That's why we're going to divide the 3 measurements by 2. Number 9. The knee measurement. My knee circumference is 17 inches. So when I divide 17 inches by 2, I'll have 8.5 inches. And that 8.5 inches, I'll be adding half an inch to it for ease allowance. Then I'll have 9 inches. And that 9 inches, I'm going to divide it into 2. Half on this side, half on the other side. The half of 9 inches is 4.5 inches. I'll put that at the center, this line. Then I'll mark 4.5 inches here. And I'll mark 9 inches here. So, number 10, the ankle measurement. My ankle circumference is 13 inches. When I divide 13 inches by 2, I'll have 6.5 inches. And that 6.5 inches, I'm going to add half an inch for ease allowance. That will be 7 inches. And that 7 inches, I'm going to divide it into 2 like I did with the knee measurement. Half on this side, half on that side. Half of 7 inches is 3.5 inches. I'll place it at the center line. 3.5 inches. And mark 3.5 inches here. Then I'll mark 7 inches here. Number 11, the hemline measurement. I'm going to use the same measurement at the hemline as well. So I'll bring my tape down. 3.5 on that side, 3.5 on this side. Mark 7. I'll mark 3.5 on the other side. So the next step is to connect the hip point to this point here, this point to these points here. I'm going to work with a French curve and a straight ruler. Connect this one with a straight ruler. Then I connect the inner seam together like this. And connect this to this point. Now we are back to the waist measurement, which is number 12. My waist circumference is 30 inches. When I divide 30 inches by 4, I'll have 7.5 inches. And that 7.5 inches, I'm going to add 1 inch to it for the dart that is going to come to this area later. That will be 8.5 inches. There is no ease allowance in a tight-fitted waist, whether skirt or trouser. If it's tight-fitted, you don't need to add any ease allowance to it, because you want your trouser or your skirt to be fitted to your waist. You don't want it falling down your waist. No ease allowance. I'm going to mark exactly that 8.5 inches. I'm not taking my measurement from this side. I'm taking it from this side, from the flyer side. We see the reason why. So I measure 8.5 inches from this point down this way. This is 8.5 inches. This point, I'm going to step it up with 3/4 of an inch to hide the side a little bit. Then I'm going to connect this point now to this point with a French curve. Then I'll connect this point to this point. Then this is our new line now. We don't need this line anymore. Number 13, creating of the dart. I'm going to create the dart along this center line here. To lengthen the dart, I'm going to measure 4 inches along this center line. The 1 inch that we added to the waist earlier, we are going to use it now, half an inch on this side, half an inch on the other side. You connect this point to this point, this point to this point. Create something like a little triangle here to be able to hold our dart properly so that we don't miss any fabric around this area. To do that, lengthen the center line with 1/4 of an inch. Connect this point to this point, this point to this point. As you can see, I've already lined the drafting out with a marker so that you can see all the lines vividly at home. Now I'm going to add half an inch seam allowance all around it. The 1.5 inches at the hemming side. As you can see, I've added the seam allowance all around it. The next thing to do now is to trim it out. I've successfully trimmed it out. The next step is to use this front draft to draft the back pattern. I'm going to place this now right on top of the back pattern paper and use this to give the back a proper shape. To draft the back pattern is the easiest. And I have the front draft on top of the back pattern paper. So I'm going to use this front draft to give the back pattern a perfect shape. All our measurements are going to be taken from the inner lines, which is this pink line inside, not the grey one. The grey one is just the seam allowance around it. So the first thing that we need to do is to draft the cross line of the back pattern. To do that, we are going to extend this line by 2 inches. If it's a bigger loose semi trouser, you can extend it to 2.5 inches. But for this, I'll be extending it with 2 inches. So I take it from the inner line. This is the 2 inches here. Now you come to the waistline. Then you find the midpoint between this center line here and this line here. Whatever you have, that's where you are going to start the back waist from. So my midpoint here is 2.2. I'm marking the 2.2 here. This 2.2, I'm going to extend it up because of the butt. So the measurement between this point and this point is 2.1 inches. I'm going to take that measurement and use that to increase this point upwards. That's it there. So the next step is the waist measurement. To create the waist measurement, I'm going to use the same front measurement for the back. The front measurement is 8.5 inches with the dart. So before I create that, I'm going to extend this initial line this way so that they can match when you are joining them in fabric together. Set it out like that. Now I'm going to measure 8.5 inches slant to meet this line. Like this. At the point of 8.5 inches. There. So on the outer leg, I'm going to extend the hip line by 1 inch, the crotch line 1 inch, knee line 1 inch, ankle line 1 inch, hem line 1 inch. Then the inner line, I will do the same, 1 inch, 1 inch, and 1 inch. I've gotten all my points. Then I'm going to remove the front draft. Then connect the points together. Now these are all the points. It's very easy to connect. The crotch point is the longest point horizontally. From this point to this point, we are going to connect them together. Next points to connect is the knee point, from this point to this point. Then the next point is the ankle point, this point to this point. The next one is the hem line. The next point is to connect the center back with a French curve. I have to make it deep. Now we are going to connect the waist points from this point to this point here. Now I'm going to draft the horizontal line of the hip line so that you know where the hip line is. Now we've gotten all our lines. It's time for us to connect all these points together. The outer line and the inner line. I'm going to connect these points to this point to this point, and that point to that point. Connect this point to this point. Connect this point to this point to that point. The last thing to do here is to draft the dart. To do that, I'm going to measure the center. I will lengthen it to 4.5 inches. We are going to slant it the way the waist is slanted already. So to do that, this point, put your tape across it like this. Then you measure 4.2 inches. This is your real point. You measure from here to this point, like this. So the 1 inch we added to the waist earlier, we are going to use it now. Half an inch on this side, half an inch on the other side. Then we'll connect these points to this point to this point here. Now I'm going to put a little triangle at the top here to enable us to hold our dart in properly so that we don't miss any fabric around this area. To do that, I will extend the center line and extend it with 1/4 of an inch and draw the line together like that. And connect this point to this point to that point. This is all about the back draft. I will trace all the lines out properly. The last touch is to add half an inch seam allowance all around it. Then 1.5 inches at the bottom. Half an inch is going to be the turning. Then 1 inch for the hemming. Then I will finally mark all the lines out with a marker so that you can see all the lines at home vividly. Like I said before, this is a semi-loose trouser. It's not a pencil trouser. As you can see, I've marked all the lines out properly with a marker. The next thing is to trim it out. I've trimmed it out successfully. Came out really nice. Now the last part of this semi-loose trouser pattern is to draw the waistband and the flyer, then the cover of the flyer. Yes, my waist circumference is 30 inches and I am going to measure exactly that 30 inches. Please listen to this brief talk. There is no ease allowance in fitted waist trouser or fitted waist skirt. You are drafting 1/4 of the trouser block. So I might say add 1/4 of an inch to that one part. And when you calculate the 1/4 of an inch into 4 places, you will have 1 inch. When you add 1 inch to that, whatever your waist circumference is, your trouser is going to be dropping or your skirt is going to be dropping from your waist. So there's no ease allowance in fitted waist trouser or fitted skirt. No ease allowance to your waistband either. Use your exact measurement so that your trouser can be firm to your waist. Right now, I'm going to measure that 30 inches. I'm going to be starting from this point. Then all the way to this part. Also mark the center of 30 inches is 15. The circumference of my trouser, which is 30 inches, is on a straight form now. So the width, I'm going to be using 1.5 inches. I think that will be enough. And I'm going to roll across. I'm going to add 1.5 inches at this part here. That is going to overlap. When you turn it around, the 1.5 inches will fall on top of this part here. The last thing to do is to add half an inch seam allowance all around it. I've added the seam allowance all around it. This is the center back. When you are sewing it, you put this part at the center back. And this band is going to be doubled. Cutting out your fabric, you are going to cut 2 of this. One for the inner part and one for the outer part. The next step is to draft the flyer. The length of the flyer is 7.5 inches, while the width is 1.5 inches. On one side, I'm going to measure 6 inches. On the other side, I'll measure 7.5 inches because I am going to curve it. Then the width, 1.5 inches. Then I'll measure 7.5 inches on this side. Connect this to this point, this to this point, this to that point. And I'll curve this part to this part. Then we go to the cover of this flyer. The cover of this flyer is just 8.5 inches by length and 2.5 inches by width. This is 2.5 inches, 8.5 inches. Now I'm going to add half an inch seam allowance all around this flyer. Then the top cover, I'm also going to add half an inch seam allowance all around it. Then I'll trace them out with marker so that you can see them at home vividly. I've finished drafting the waistband, so I think you can see them at home vividly. The very last thing to do is to trim them out. I've trimmed them out. The band, the flyer, and the top cover. All the parts of this trouser pattern have already been created. So this is the back pattern and this is the front pattern, as you can see. Then this is the waistband, this is the flyer, and this is the This is the flyer, and this is the cover for this flyer. That's the overlap. Now, as you can see, everything is completed. We've come to the end of this tutorial. If you like this video, please give me thumbs up. If you have any question whatsoever, please don't hesitate to leave it at the comment section below. I'll be more than glad to answer any of your questions to the best of my knowledge. If you've not subscribed to this channel, please try and do so, because you have a lot to gain from this channel. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video. God bless you.